Sean, how important is it for Nico to be aggressive, looking for his shot early? Because it seemed like in the exhibition, the NAU game, he was a little tentative in the beginning, but Sunday night he was really looking for that shot early, and he kind of got him into that flow.
It just, it's so easy to forget how young some of these players are. It's not just in our program or even this year. It's been other years on our team, and it's throughout college basketball. We're right here at the very beginning stages, a couple weeks in the month's November. Not too long ago, everybody would understand that it takes a little time for a freshman to get used to playing college basketball, for a new coach, a new team, etc. And there's so many high expectations for incoming freshmen, especially if you're as decorated as Nico is. So I understand that. But I think, the way I would answer the question is just simply that wherever Nico is, and for that matter, a lot of things with our team, it's going to take some time. We're at the beginning stages. No doubt about it. He was more confident, more aggressive than he had been, but it makes sense. Red Blue games, I know it's us against us, but you have no idea how nervous our players are to be out there for the first time. And then, we kind of go away and play a scrimmage with no people, and that's like the first time you've ever played against a college team. And then, it just builds. So I was really excited not just to watch Nico's progress, but I do believe confidence is a big deal. And he was more sure of himself. We want him to have that attack mentality. I think not only does that make him the best he can be, but it sets the tone for our team's offense, and for that matter, our defense as well. So we want him to be like that, and he took a big step forward, and some other guys did as well, being that it is so young of a season.
He comes out of the locker room with 2 fouls, but what did you like about the way he was aggressive on those first 2 defensive possessions? He adjusted the first shot defensively and then got a steal right away.
Nico? Same thing. I think the first half sets the tone a lot of times for the second half, especially for a young player. But, confidence, you have to earn it all over again. It's not something that you just all of a sudden have forever just because you had it a year earlier, maybe at the high school level. The more experience you get, the more practices, the more success. Playing in a game like Illinois this early, it's good on a lot of levels, but one level is that, we had an opportunity to play against a Big Ten opponent and a lot of good players on their team, and we had a number of guys do a good job. So I think that game is a confidence builder as well.
Where do you stand on starting to set guys in roles? You mentioned that the other day, and I was wondering, is it too early to start thinking, this is going to work, or this guy's going to work in that spot, or?
Yeah, it is, and we're again. I'll answer that question very similar. We're so much a work in progress. We know more now than we did a couple weeks back, but I do think that if you watch Zeke and Josh and Nico as they continue to get both feet on the ground and learn more about college basketball, I think they're very consistent players every day in practice, and you can start to see that they're going to be able to do that same thing in the game. And then we have a lot of other guys that are talented, and we have to make sure we as a coaching staff do a good job of giving them roles, defining those roles, and then as a player you have to buy in. You have to kind of be what our team needs you to be. But I do think our team's chemistry is good, and we have a lot of guys that are contributing. And when you win, it's a lot easier to rationalize with players and talk to players about this is what we need you for. So hopefully we can stay on that winning track and, again, continue to grow.
You mentioned some regrets Sunday night not getting Koloko in there. Why maybe was that game not a fit for him?
You can only play so many players. It's very difficult to play 8, 9, get into 10. And there'll be some nights Christian will be a contributor and maybe some others that he won't. In no way, shape, or form does that mean that he's not playing as well. I talked to him after the game. The best years, the best times for Christian are in front of him. That's obvious to everybody on our team, and if you watched us practice, you would see that. He's made tremendous improvements from the time he stepped on campus in June till now, and I think he'll continue to do that. Sometimes you'll see him in games and he'll make good plays, and sometimes it's going to be more behind the scenes, but his future is incredibly bright. We're thrilled to have him, and I like to play everybody. It's just in that 40 minutes, you have to be careful. Sometimes you can overplay it by trying to get everybody in. You take away from players' confidence and those roles that we're talking about trying to develop.
What's the status of Devonair?
Devonair is really in the same place. We'll know more over the next couple of days. There is a chance that he could play against San Jose State. I'm not going to commit to that right now, but I think that there's a chance that he could. There's also a chance that we could be in the same place as we approach game day. So I'll know more over the next couple of days.
Your gold jersey winner early in camp, is he eligible to still win that even though he's on a suspension?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he practices with us.
So if those two, from what we saw the first two games, Zeke, Josh, and Nico, is that going to be a challenge? I mean, you mentioned the chemistry is pretty good, and it seems to be, but is that kind of a challenging dynamic? If that goes forward, your three top guys are freshmen, and everybody else has to kind of accept that?
No, it's how I answered the question a month ago about captains. College basketball is a different game today than it was a decade ago or 5 years ago. It's why it's so hard to compare. That your best players are your leaders. If your best players happen to be freshmen, which isn't just the case at Arizona occasionally, it's throughout college basketball. So, how they develop, how hard they practice. In some ways, you're asking them to take on a leadership role. But, we have a lot of talented players, not just those three freshmen. We have some returners that are doing a really good job. And being that we're only 2 games in, we could all feel differently a month from now. But I do really believe in our freshman class. They are high-character guys. They know how to win. They come from backgrounds where they've won before they showed up here at Arizona. And not only do I think they're talented players, but they're equally really good people. And that helps our team tremendously.
That's just the age difference. You have 4th, 5th-year seniors. I mean, is that a challenging dynamic, or we're so far so good, or how much?
I mean, it's just we're no different than anybody. I mean, we're all combining things that maybe a few years back weren't combinable. Like you're right. Max Hazard's a newcomer. He's only played 2 games here yet. He's in his 5th year. Stone Gettings, ditto for him. Jamal's coming from a different school where he actually played on their team a year ago. So, those are 3 examples of non-freshmen that are also new. But you're right. Teams chemistry, buying into roles, having a disciplined approach where each week we can grow and get better. Again, can't say it enough. We're at the beginning stages of a long season. We've played 2 games, and I think there's a lot of good we can take from the Illinois game, but we have to improve. And if you would pin, what is it that we're the most worried about, or what we feel like we have to make progress towards today, this week for these games coming up, it's on the defensive end. We had a couple plays in the Illinois game where it was more about Illinois, and I'm sure their coach would agree. It had nothing to do with our defense. They turned the ball over uncharacteristically a lot, more than 20 times, and just there were breakdowns we had on defense that we can't have moving forward. And how can we learn from it? Can we be that much more solid the next time out? That's really where our focus is, because that right there is the substance, and that's going to win the most games for us. We want to be balanced. We want to be good on offense, but we also want to be good on defense. And we have to improve on that side of the ball right now more than maybe we do on offense.
Do you buy anything into those length of possession stats? Because you guys are averaging 14.1 on offense, defense, holding them, I think it was like 18 or 18.6. It was a pretty big spread. And maybe indicated, I know your defense typically tries to keep them long into that. But
that's how it should look. You don't want quick shots against our defense. We're taking pride in getting back in transition. So, how many quick baskets are they going to get in transition? A lot of times if you're inefficient on offense, you take bad shots, you take quick shots, you turn the ball over. That also leads to the quick possession against your defense. Take that away, if a team's able to get a great shot in the first couple of passes, first 10 seconds of the possession, I think that's probably pointing towards effort or an individual that isn't getting the job done. That's not good either, right? So the opposite is true on defense if it's long possessions where you're getting back. They're not getting those quick strikes against you. You're making them earn good shots. They have to be deliberate because there's nothing there, and they're trying to break you at the very end of the possession. And, that's, I think, over time, the type of defense that we want to have. However, we have a long ways to go before we're able to be that team right now on defense.
You mentioned high character guys. Your players were extremely impressive on media day with the way they conducted themselves and everything. Where in the process does that kind of recruiting, does that go into your head as far as, well, obviously you're going to look and you got to see who's a great basketball player first, but how soon in the process are you looking at their character? It seems to be a theme with each class that you have, and this year's class was just very impressive.
Thank you. Those guys are products of where they come from. As much as we like to say we hold them accountable, and we do, no different than raising a son. You're with them for 18 years. You send them to college, and to a large extent they'll learn a lot while they're here. But when they show up, they have habits, they have ways of doing things, and we do have a good group. All that I would say is, it's really hard to stereotype because some of the greatest kids that you ever have the opportunity to coach here at Arizona come from the toughest backgrounds. And I'll give you Kadeem Allen as an example. He's a guy that fought and scratched and clawed, and he's got a really good family behind him in Wilmington, North Carolina. But he had to overcome a lot of things, but he did. And he did it through a junior college, and he did it by redshirting here. But when he left, I would say he's been one of our best leaders we've had. And, man, he really grew by leaps and bounds from the day we met him until the time that he left. And, he's a great kid. But so where they're from, what area of the country, what their family structure is like, sometimes you think that has everything to do with it. But in large part, you really learn these guys when they're here. At this moment, right now at Arizona, we have a really good group of guys for sure. And one of the things that helps us is kind of what Bruce pointed out, that we have like a real older group that can kind of offset some of the youth. Forget Chase Jeter's in his 5th year as well. So you have Dylan, who's in his 5th year, Dylan Smith. And then you have Jamal Baker, who's older, Stone Gettings, Max Hazard. Those guys are at the very end of a long career. They're far from high school. And then, they meet up with 4 freshmen who were in high school a year ago. And then you have a couple guys that are in between. So I think that balance helps us, and we're going to rely on that from start to finish, especially when times are tough, when we run into those obstacles, tough loss, and that'll happen, how we're able to overcome that. We're going to really rely on what you're asking about right now.
How do you think Dylan has played so far?
Dylan's done a good job. That's why he's starting. He earned that. We really count on him a lot to be tough-minded and in the right position defensively. He's one of our tone setters on defense because he's been in the most practices. He kind of knows how to do it. And, on offense in Game 1, I thought he was really efficient. He had a couple turnovers in the second game, but, for the most part, he's doing a good job.
Can you tell he takes pride in his role or his niche?
He does. Dylan wants to win. I think last year's the only year that he hasn't been in the tournament. He was in the tournament at Asheville before he came here, and I think he takes a lot of pride in being on a good team. And a lot of the guys that were here a year ago, they had a chance to experience that other side, and it's not as fun when you don't win. So I think he's in his final year here at Arizona. I think at the top of his priority list is to be a winning player, to be on a team that can have a really good season.
I know you normally don't look for plus 300 teams on your schedule, but San Jose State, did you figure, how did that work out, or did you figure that the preload might have them a little bit better at this point?
Yeah, and they had a really good win. To go to New York and, beat Hofstra. Hofstra is a perennial very, very good team, a postseason team for decades there in New York, and they got one win under their belt. So that's all we can go on. But yeah, I mean, I think that they're from the Mountain West Conference, right? That's a conference that I think is very well respected, and they got a coach that's trying to build a program. So it's hard to look at where they were a year ago and maybe where they could be this year. And like everything, you want to have balance in your schedule. We just played a team, Illinois, from the Big Ten Conference that has high aspirations this season. So, we play San Jose State. We also have a very, very challenging, difficult team coming in this weekend as our second game, New Mexico State. So, over the long course, you want to have good balance. But Wednesday we have to be ready, or Thursday we have to be ready for that game for sure against San Jose State.
He was at Colorado for a long time. I didn't know if you had a relationship with him or that led to this game, or was it just kind of random?
No, that didn't have anything to do with it.
And New Mexico State, jumping ahead a little bit, you've played them a bunch of times over the years. They've really got it going. Are you looking to kind of keep that up, playing them once in a while like this? Or?
Well, we've had a series with them, and then they've come here a couple of times. But we're fortunate to have them here in McHale this year. A year ago they were one of the nation's best teams. They return a lion's share of what made them a great team last year. I know what they expect to do. They expect to win their conference, be in postseason, not only enter the NCAA tournament but advance. And they have a really good coach. They are tough-minded and physical, hard-playing. We've talked about them throughout the summer because I think all of our players really understand that that's one of many tests this year that's going to be on our schedule. But I know that's the second game this week. Our focus right now is really towards being ready to go against San Jose State. Again, they come from the Mountain West. They have a one win already against a good team on Hofstra. And they have a transfer from Wake Forest who's really a difference maker. And we look at them, as we do always, as going to be a challenge. And we have a young group. It'll be interesting to see us bounce from the Illinois game to this game. We have to be ready. We have to work hard to be better.
One of the guys you're looking at was saying he's going to commit one day after the fall signing period. I know Zeke did something similar to that last year. It seems like a lot of guys are doing that maybe to keep their options technically open or whatever in case things change in the spring. What do you make of that trend, I guess?
We've seen the trend a couple years ago. I don't think that has anything to do with us here at Arizona. It's just, again, it's a changing landscape. A lot of the nation's best players and people, they're not, signing early, and they're committing and sticking with their commitment. I don't really have a thought one way or the other on that, but I would say that it's more to do nationally. You hear that more and more often than you once did.
But, did you feel like when Zeke did that last year, for example, he seemed pretty solid. He certainly was. He adopted a strength program from you guys. Was that ever an issue, having him versus Nico and Josh, et cetera?
No. Obviously, Zeke's family is an incredible family, and they did their research, had a plan, stuck by their plan, and they're one of the groups that elected to not sign. But Zeke did sign in April, so and that was their plan all along. So I know there are families, not just players that we're recruiting, but others that are thinking along those lines. There's a lot of ways to look at that.
So the actual signing period starts tomorrow. Expect at least one still, or one, and then who knows, or because of this situation?
Yeah, we're working through it. What I'll tell you is that when we get to the spring, I'm confident in saying that we'll have, in and around 5 newcomers. I knew, and we all knew here. Remember, we didn't just sign 4 incoming freshmen. We actually signed 5. And, Terry elected to go and play in Australia. But we also then added, a number of others. When you sign and, bring in 8 or 9, it's tough to kind of follow that up and get 5. You're signing like 14 or 15 people in a 10 to 12 month window. We'll get there. It'll play itself out. and I'm comfortable with where we are. And, we're hard at work, I'll tell you that. It's not like we're just sitting here coaching this year's team. I mean, there's always that dual approach of your recruiting and your coaching, and it'll all work itself out.
And just wondering what you think about the Pac-12 so far, at 18-1, and ASU being the only loser technically.
Well, if you would have asked me late in the summer, early fall, I would have told you that I think the Pac-12 this season will be deeper and better. We have some really good coaches in our conference, maybe the best group of coaches that we've ever had since I've been here. That's not taking it away from any of the coaches that were once here and no longer, but I'm saying more 1 through 12, not just a few, but just every program seems to have somebody in charge of it. A couple of the new hires, those guys come from winning backgrounds, and they're excellent at what they do. You can already see it. And I think we have some veterans that are returning, a good group of newcomers. I look at the newcomers at Oregon and Washington, and, they're good teams. I mean, there's a couple guys that are going to play in the NBA next year that are on their teams. So I think we have a talented conference, and, the non-conference season, the days of cheering against each other have long ended. We want every team in our conference to win, and we want them to win the most games possible, and that's only going to help Arizona. That's only going to help our conference when we get into February and March. And I think we're off to a good start. It'll be interesting to see the rest of this month play out. But, Jamie Zaninovich he's really worked hard with Larry Scott in the Pac-12 office to look hard at strategies and non-conference scheduling, and to educate our not only our coaches but the administrations in our league, to make sure that they understand the value of that non-conference winning percentage, and playing smart away games, smart home and home series. And man, we're so much further up the ladder than maybe we used to be in terms of our overall thinking, and we're united. We have a conference that understands that we have to work together in the non-conference season, and so I'm glad to see we're off to a good start, and hopefully we can continue, and hopefully we can represent the Pac-12 and continue to do a good job. This past weekend it was a Big Ten versus the Pac-12 opportunity, and we helped our conference, so we want to continue to do that.
Anything else? Thanks.